It's official, folks. We are in a recession. Numbers came out this morning, and the stock market didn't do anything. My name's Eric. This is above my pay grade. Thanks for tuning in. So we're officially in a recession, or as the White House calls it, a booming recession. So what does that mean? I kind of like to zoom out just a bit, because whether the numbers came out this morning as recessionary, meaning a drop in GDP, or not, we have a bigger problem on our hands. And what is that bigger problem? In my opinion, that is trust. Trust in the system, trust in the dollar, trust in the Fed. Why do I say that? Well, the Federal Reserve has, how do I put this? For the longest time, the stock market, the market in general, the bond market, was the dog, and the Fed was the tail. I think it's the other way around now. The Fed, people look at the Fed, the markets look at the Fed, and like, are they going to start easing? And if you watch Jerome Powell, and this just lets you know how ridiculous the system that we have is, which I'll talk about trust here in a second. But Jerome Powell yesterday hinted that he might not raise rates as aggressively in September. He hinted at it. So if you get your decoder ring out and send a couple smoke signals up, and then get people's opinion, that's how you get your financial forecast, based off of Jerome Powell's bowel movement that morning. That's how it works in today's economy. It's what is the Fed going to do, and how does that affect profits of our company? Isn't that ridiculous? That's ridiculous. And the reason we're here is we have such a massive amount of debt. Basically, if you tighten lending standards, it crushes everybody. And if you loosen it, the Ponzi scheme can continue to run. Now, the Ponzi scheme is the dollar. And I always ask people, and I want you to ask yourself this question: why do people trust the dollar? You may not specifically, but why do people trust the dollar or any currency, especially if it's fiat? Fiat meaning it's backed by nothing, it's by government decree. Why do people do that? Well, for me, it's just the way it's always been. And when I go to a store, they accept them. So that's been my life story. I use dollars, I save in dollars and all this kind of stuff, because that's the way it's always been. Here's what I want you to think about. What changes in a country, and we're no different, by the way, other than the fact that we have the world reserve currency. What changes in a country when they go from trusting a currency one year to hyperinflating the next? It's lack of trust. And it's lack of trust on a mass scale. So when not just you think the dollar's garbage, but your neighbor and every neighbor around you think the dollar's garbage, the first thing you try to do is get rid of those dollars, which means hyperinflation. So this system, and based off Jerome Powell's bowel movements, and if he feels good that day, and a bureaucratic organization like the Fed running the markets, most people think it's, they're still in it to get rich. They think there's some issues with it, but they're in it to get rich, and they think they can get rich off of this government intervention. But eventually, the masses, and I think this happens in our lifetime, the masses go, this benefits a few, and it doesn't benefit me. And I don't trust this dollar anymore. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I know more people every day, specifically countries, that's what I want you to really think about, specifically countries like Russia and China are getting rid of their dollar-denominated debt. They are letting treasuries roll off their balance sheet. They're not buying more of them. And the reason they're not is because they realize they're in a game that they can't win. If the United States is wielding the dollar like a club instead of a neutral reserve currency, they don't want to play that game. And the question is, where do all those dollars go if China doesn't want them? They don't go to money heaven, as Gregory Mannarino says. They don't flitter off into nowhere. They go somewhere. And they usually go back to the host country. That would be us. And there's far more, this is the funny thing, there's far more dollars outside the United States than inside the United States. But if these foreign buyers don't want them anymore, where do they go? They come back here. And when they come back here, that means more dollars chasing less goods and services, which means inflation. All of this, my point is, if people's ability to use dollars or their desire to use dollars is based off trust, what would have to happen to break that trust? Just the average person, the plebe, what would have to happen to break that trust? And that would be, in my opinion, continued inflation. Higher and higher inflation. But that'll happen slowly and then all at once, I think, in the long run, where we have inflation and hyperinflation. And we might get back down to 2 this time. But the long curve, the story of the dollar is going to die. A lot of people don't realize that. All fiats die because the way the system is designed, it's not designed for austerity. It's designed for more money, meaning more debt, meaning more printing, which benefits a few and doesn't benefit the little guy. And the more people realize that, the less trust there is in the dollar, and the more likely it is to fail sooner rather than later. But that's the big picture to me. These little, are we in a recession? What's Jerome Powell going to do? Oh, he's slightly dovish. Oh, he's hawkish. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous to me that one guy and what he ate for breakfast that morning can determine the movement of markets. It's ridiculous. But that just goes to show you how ridiculous the Ponzi scheme of fiat is. Because if there's a centralized controller of purchasing power, which is the Fed, then everyone looks to them to save them when things are going wrong. My contention is get that power away from centralized control. Get the money and the power of the printer out of government control. That's the long story. And that's the direction we're going, is people are going to start distrusting their government's currency. Just like they distrust their government because they say, technically we're not in a recession. A recession is when a unicorn comes up and the sorcerer's stone comes out of the... We're in a recession. Guess what? The second quarter of GDP just came out. And it's negative. You know what that means? Recession, you dum-dums. And the question is, who's going to believe the White House? Are you going to believe your lying eyes? Or are you going to believe the White House? All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Fun rant this morning. See you guys in the next one. Peace.